Well, how many people is their first Podcamp here? It's a lot of the room. A lot of the room, their first Podcamp. So how many of you are actually able to make it to the keynote? So you probably got a little, I didn't make it to the beginning of the keynote. So I'm presuming that Norm stood up on stage and did his introduction of what Podcamp is about. And it's a very casual conference. This is actually my normal clothing. I don't like this whole dress up thing. I'm a fan of like the sandals and such like that. But Podcamp is a very informal conference. So if you feel the need in this session, you're not getting out of it what you think, just feel free to leave. I won't be offended. I'm a session jumper myself. I would love to just jump between all the sessions and see what's going on and then kind of settle on one about 10 minutes in. So feel free to do that. I won't be offended. Plus, I'm sure someone wants your seat if you don't want to be there. So a little bit about me. My name's Will Reynolds Young, and it is quite the packed house here today, so I'm quite impressed. You know, last night I had my dreams of there's no one going to be in this session except for my dad, who's right here, and a friend over there, and a couple of other folks, but you know, I planted them so I couldn't have an empty session, so I knew I was at least going to have that.
I was the worst.
At least going to have that. So I'm the chief digital officer of a company named Skin Nourishment. It's not a natural skincare company, not important for this. I handle all of our digital content, which means our website, our Twitter, Facebook, networks you haven't even heard of. We operate in 37 countries, so I'm going to try and stay out of those networks that exist in other countries and that don't really exist here because I want to keep it small. We are considered a small business, even though we operate in that many countries. So how many of you own a small business or work at a small business? Okay. And then how many of you would consider yourself entrepreneurs?
Not me.
Okay, so we're about half and half in the room. And when I was titling this session, I was wondering that if I title as an entrepreneur session, are the small business people not going to show up? Or the small business people? And it's really a hybrid of that. That and I just wrote the session last night. Not really.
That's not entirely true.
No.
That's not entirely true. You're right.
It's partly, mostly.
It's partly true. I did have some forethought. I asked some folks on Facebook and Twitter what their thoughts were. Asked a couple people at work to see what people were really asking about all the time, more so, because a lot of the clients that I would deal with are a lot more high level, or I might manage it for them. So how many are you on social media already? How many of your businesses or companies are on social media already? Okay. So I always get inspired by certain people just to kind of pump myself up for the presentation. So on the way here, I was listening to George Watsky. He's a poet. He creates some really, really good music. Certainly very explicit at times, but it always comes across with a really good message. Another person who comes across with a really good message for me all the time is Gary Vaynerchuk. Last night I was kind of just watching through a bunch of Gary Vaynerchuk sessions to see what his thoughts were in the current time, and just he's a really, really good speaker. And if this session could go 1/3 as well as he speaks normally, then it'll be the best session ever. So social media, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to try this here. 1 to 5, trying to get like a gauge of difficulty in the room, of how experienced people are, to tailor the session to that more. So if you think that you're comfortable on social media on a 5 to 10, so really, really comfortable, raise your hand. And then below 5. It's kind of what I expected, that most of the room would be below 5. Podcamp is a very, very learning-oriented thing. So every time I go into a room and I explain social media to someone who just doesn't understand, doesn't get it, or doesn't want to get it, I tell them that social media is word of mouth on steroids. So it's really what social media is. When I try and explain Twitter to someone, I talk to them about the fact that Twitter is just that conference that you walked into. So everyone walked into a conference here today. Whether it's actually a conference or an unconference, there's a battle about that. But everyone walked into the conference today. and you probably met and saw a lot of new faces. So did you start walking up to everyone and just handing them your business card? Did anyone just walk up to someone and just hand them their business card? No introduction, no hi, how are you, anything? I didn't think anyone did that. Just wanted to make sure. If someone goes around on social media and they just keep sending your message out to someone, you're not going to get anything back from it, because people don't like to just be sold to constantly. They want you to actually give a damn about them. We're all people, and even if it's a business, you're still a person. Especially with small business, your biggest asset when you're a small business is yourself. When you're an entrepreneur, the biggest asset is yourself. So be yourself on social media. A lot of people will go up and say, don't do this or don't say that. And really, at the end of the day, if someone doesn't like that from you, then you might not want them to be your customer. You might not be the best fit for your customer. Whenever I go and talk to clients or whatever, most of them are people I already know, because I build that long-term relationship. I don't want anyone to come in here and think that when they use social media, it's just going to be this, you're going to get a return on investment tomorrow. Social media is the long run. It's the long-term value of your customer. It's not just tomorrow you're going to see a huge return on investment. I and the company that I work for, Skin Nourishment, that is owned by my aunt actually, I worked for an entire solid year building up our presence. And we just had a conference that we went to. It's called the Outdoor Retailer Show. And we saw tons and tons of faces that we knew from social media on there. So that was when she was really able to see the benefits. She believed she knew. But your biggest hurdle is the naysayers. You're not going to see that return on investment tomorrow. So the biggest thing that you should do first, the first thing you should do, is create an action plan. So when you create your action plan, you need to choose what networks you're going to be on. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that you need to be on Twitter, you need to be on Facebook, you need to be on Google+, you need to be on LinkedIn. It's not feasible for you to be on everything. You need to be where your customers are. So that's where you need to do your market research beforehand, and you need to find out where your customers are. And instead of just, walking around and asking where all your customers are, go onto those networks. Explore them a little bit yourself. Give it a day. Look around. Maybe you'll see some familiar faces from your orders. Maybe you'll see some folks that might be your customers. So your business, you might not find anyone on those networks. So that's where you need to make a choice. Do you go there on Facebook because that's the largest social network? Maybe not. Maybe you go to that teeny little niche site that is just about your subject. So in my case, our biggest demographic is climbers. So there's a site that launched called I Love Climbing. So we're on that site. We're very, very active on I Love Climbing. And, obviously for your business, that might not be the best ploy. I mean, if you don't have climbers, then why would you be on that network? All the networks have their own unique aspects to them. Whether it's Twitter and it's really short, whether it's Facebook and people love photos on Facebook, whether it's Google Plus and it's a very, very technical community, whether it's Pinterest and it's related to food, lots and lots of food on Pinterest, whether it's Instagram and it's photo related again, whether it's Vine, really short videos, whether it's YouTube, perhaps longer videos, but they need to be engaging. Tumblr, short, quick, easy things to share, or whether it's your own company blog. So how many of you, out of all those networks I just mentioned, had not heard of one of them? Okay, so that's probably a good thing. You've heard of all these networks because they're all huge. That's why I chose them. I didn't just go ahead and choose networks that no one would know. So I get a lot of questions from folks, whether it's folks at work, like they look and they say, oh my goodness, you have X number of Twitter followers. Couldn't tell you how many Twitter followers I have. Don't know the Facebook friends, because at the end of the day, the numbers don't matter. They really don't. The engagement of the customer matters. And when you look at your numbers through whatever service you might use, which we'll talk about some. Engagement is the thing you want to measure. Obviously you want to have more numbers of people following you, so more people are getting your message. But at the end of the day, what if your 2 followers on Twitter are Oprah and Bill Clinton? So Oprah and Bill Clinton probably have quite a following. So if they see your message, it's going to get a little bit more traction than if I see your message. So, I might go back here to myself and say, bless you. Numbers don't matter. They definitely don't. But when you walk into a room and, sometimes my aunt will send me a text message and will be like, oh my goodness, our Twitter followers just jumped. And I can't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but there's a ridiculous number of Twitter accounts that are just fake. They look real. They're fake. They're just completely fake. They're worth nothing. Having a follow from them is nothing. However, something that a number does do is when you reply to a customer or you reply to another company, if they see that you have a lot of followers, that might instantly add credibility. That's really the only place the numbers matter. But what I really want you to do is focus on engagement, not the numbers. So a lot of people ask me, how do you get more followers? Well, you give a damn. So you outreach to people. So when it comes to Twitter, you reply to them. You ask, maybe they asked about a recipe. Maybe you can give them a recipe that you like from your family. When you are in the social media community, you go to meetups. You talk about your business. You talk to other people. On Facebook, you share your friends' content. It's not about you. It's about you and them. So another question I get all the time is, how do you find local customers? This is actually something that I got as a question from a guy who I do a podcast with named Greg Noakes. He lives all the way in Seattle. And it was a great one. I didn't even think of it. A lot of these small businesses that you guys own are probably very local. A lot of folks that I know, their businesses are very local. So the way you get your followers up, you talk to people in your area. You get your friends and your family involved. You say, hey, do you mind following my Facebook page, or whatever you have. Another awesome way to find those local customers is to target searches to area. So on Twitter, there's a spot where you can search. It's search.twitter.com. And on there it has an advanced search. And inside the advanced search, you can choose a location that you want to search around. So I have up here, it's an application called Mention, which I'll talk about at the end. But you can see tweets here mentioning Podcamp. Hey, look, there's me. How about that? So you can see tweets here mentioning Podcamp. So this is actually a search all across the internet. It's not just a search on Twitter. It's an amazing application called Mention, which I'll show you a little bit more at the end because I use it a ton. Anyone have any questions so far? They've all been very quiet. Good.
Is there a way on Facebook, if I have a page, to request that other pages like my page as their page?
There is not.
Okay,
No.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
Because what I've been doing is manually emailing people and doing that human contact
Right.
thing, which is awesome. Very time intensive.
Mhm.
Right. So that's helpful at least to know, because I
Right.
thought maybe I'm just blind. So thank you.
No, unfortunately there is no way. And that's one of the tough things about Facebook and Facebook profiles is that they're very different in the way you interact with them.
Yeah.
It's tough. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to continue here to talk about some statistics. I scoured the internet last night for the most recent statistics, not just the ones that I made up. Because I can make up a lot of statistics. They're really fun to make up. But these are actually statistics that I found through an infograph. through a site called Source Daily Insights. So there's so many analytic companies that create all kinds of different things like Kissmetrics and Social Media Daily Insights. And they just create these really awesome graphs called infographs, and they're just packed full of information. So anyone have a guess on what percentage of users turn to social media for their purchase? A percentage. Anyone?
35.
86, 35, somewhere in the middle there. So 46% of users turn to social media for their purchases. Gary Vaynerchuk was talking yesterday, not really yesterday, it was my yesterday, it was his 6 months ago. But he was talking yesterday how he was standing in line at the movies, getting ready to buy his ticket, and he peeks over at someone's cell phone, which he calls market research. Probably agree. Have to look around the room. Are people tweeting about the session? Do they have a laptop? Do they have an iPad? That's what I'm interested in. That's just geeking out for me. I like to see the MacBooks of the world. Totally a Mac fanboy. Sorry, Android users. I still use them, but he was talking about this guy. He didn't actually talk to the guy. This guy was in his upper 70s, and he looked down at his phone, and he saw what he thought was TweetDeck. TweetDeck is an application for your phone for Twitter. And he was like, that couldn't be TweetDeck, right? A 70-plus-year-old guy using TweetDeck asking. So he looks over a little further, and he notes that the guy is tweeting out, and he's asking what movie he should go see. So he tweets that out and waits a minute. He gets his replies, and then he chooses that movie. The largest segment of Twitter users that is growing right now is actually 60-plus.
Wow.
So I know a lot of kids. My dad's on Facebook. He likes to read my statuses. Luckily, he doesn't comment on all of them. But our parents are on social media. Our grandparents are on social media. My grandma uses Facebook all the time. She keeps up with what I post on there, so I make sure that I post some updates on there so she knows I'm still living, I'm still alive, I still exist. So this is the statistic that I really want to hear more about, and I really didn't have time to research it a ton, but I'm going to find out more about it because it blows my mind. Social media generates almost double the marketing leads of trade shows, telemarketing, mail, and pay-per-click advertising.
Individually or combined?
Individually. I'll say it again. Social media generates almost double the marketing leads of trade shows, telemarketing, daily mail, and pay-per-click advertising. It's another Source Daily Insights. It's not that I don't believe the statistics. It's that I want to hear more about how they figured that out. So personally, I know I just sent out a newsletter yesterday, 2 different newsletters actually, and I got to see the click-through rate and how many people actually opened it, which at this point is very, very small, very, very small. But on social media, you can see that instant reply from someone. Last night actually, I was on our corporate Twitter account, and I was kind of looking around what people were doing, and I saw this guy. His name's Steve Weiss, and hopefully he's watching because I told him to watch. That's the point of this story. He's over in Ohio, and he's normally in Utah. He just came back from overseas somewhere, like Chile. Can't exactly remember where. But he's a guy that I follow on Twitter personally, and then also through the corporate brand page. And I just reached out to him because I saw he was in Ohio, and he was in Cleveland. So it's not that far from here. He mentioned he was bored last night. So I said, Podcamp Pittsburgh's going on tomorrow. Not that far of a drive from Cleveland, only 2.5 hours away. It's free. Come on down. He replied within 5 minutes. He said, tell me more about this. So we went back and forth a little bit. Obviously, he's not here, so he didn't make it. But hopefully he's watching, and he was excited. He was excited to be able to meet the person behind the brand. And that's why it's important to make your brand human. And the problem that people have all the time with that is they don't want this one person entrusted in our brand. Anyone heard of the name Miley Cyrus? Yes, okay. So we all know who Miley Cyrus is. And people wonder, is Miley Cyrus really that crazy, or is she just this media genius? It's probably somewhere in the middle. She's getting tons and tons of free publicity. I mean, I just talked about her. So people worry about that, this single person is going to destroy your brand. So that's obviously a concern. If you have one person that is your brand, then, they might destroy it. And that's kind of the negative of the internet that I always tell people. People on the internet are really, really quick to blame and judge, and they just kind of take everything at face value. They don't look at it very long. And that's okay. I mean, negative things will happen. But at the end of the day, you're going to gain so much more by having an actual person behind your brand, whether it's just Will or whether it's Will Reynolds Young. You're going to get a lot more by Will behind your brand besides just Final Products. If they can put a face to that name when they see you, you're going to get a ton more. So it depends on how far you actually want to take it. Do you want your Twitter picture to be your company logo? Do you want it to be you? And that's just how comfortable you are with it. Myself, if you Google myself on the internet, you'll find more about me than I know about myself, likely. And I'm okay with that. That just means that either I have a lot of stalkers or I like to talk about myself too much, I guess. So, one of the two. So, one of the most interesting things, how many of you guys have websites? Okay. How many of those websites would you say are optimized for mobile, meaning that they are easy to view on mobile devices? Okay, so we had about half the room saying they had a website, but only a quarter of the room, or half of those people, said that their website is optimized for mobile. So leave the session right now and just go optimize your website for mobile. Wait a minute. Just wait, another 20 minutes we have or so. And then you can go optimize your website for mobile. And here's why. 751 million users access Facebook from mobile on 7,000 different devices. The iPhone might be the biggest device out there, and maybe the Samsung Galaxy S4, but maybe the Samsung Galaxy S4 for the Android people, but there's 7,000 devices, and I'm not trying to tell you to go and optimize your website for all of those 7,000 devices, but if your website is difficult to view on a mobile device, I'm not going to stay at it. And there's so many tools that make it really easy, whether you put up a separate website, whether you use an app. Obviously, I prefer it's your original website, but if your website is not optimized for mobile, you're losing customers. It's that easy. 60% of Twitter users access from a mobile device, which I feel that statistic is actually low. The web client is the most used one, but you can also use the web client on the phone. So my guess is that statistic's low, but still 60% of Twitter users are actually accessing it from their mobile device. I'm actually surprised looking around this room that I don't see more iPads up or other tablets versus laptops. I personally hate tablets. I'm not a tablet fan. Sorry, Ron. I prefer my cell phone or my laptop, but there are tons of people who are using iPads all the time. Let's not mistake ourselves. Let's look around to your kids or your younger cousins. How many phone calls do you think they make a month?
None, they text.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, you're exactly right. There is a complete shift in the way we communicate. Totally stealing this part from Gary Vaynerchuk, by the way. Just like to attribute content to people because I actually got it from him. So he talked about it. There's 3 calls per month is their average. 3,000 text messages.
Good.
3 calls per month, 3,000 text messages, and that was a statistic from 2011. I'm trying to think right now the last time I made a phone call, and I'm trying to think who it was to. It was likely our office or my father. That's about it. It's about the two people I talked to on the phone. Everyone else is text messaging, Twitter, Facebook. I use Facebook Messenger an immense amount. Email, plenty of other ways to talk to people. So
Why do you pay for phone subscription then?
I use my data plan excessively. So it's altogether bundled. They got me locked in.
My
Verizon.
grandma calls.
No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. I call her occasionally, but she mostly just kind of keeps up on Facebook, and then it takes like, oh honey, how are you? And we talk for an hour or whatever, and then that's it for a couple months, and then we talk again and catch up.
So, what are some of the tools for mobile optimization for people who don't know much about it?
So, Mobile Roadie is one that I've looked at. Generally, I would actually say that instead of trying to just mobily optimize your website, as much as I'd love you to do that, there's so many platforms that make it easy, like Mobile Roadie. You're probably better at this point at looking at platforms that help you do it for you. Maybe look now to upgrade your website. My guess, without looking at those websites, is they're not mobily optimized, but they most likely need updated too. WordPress is an amazing, amazing platform. You can find templates that are optimized for mobile. What they call them is responsive templates. So if you find you install a WordPress site, and you get a responsive template, you're all set up for mobile. I made it sound really easy there. I know. But you're going to have a hell of a time using those applications and trying to make your site look like you want it to and working around that. And that's why I think it's just a better investment of your time to just upgrade your website with that. Shopify is an amazing e-commerce platform that allows you to have a mobile optimized website. Ton of easy designs. I'm no web developer. I definitely can build a website. I've built a lot of WordPress sites, but I'm definitely no web developer. And Shopify is incredibly easy to make an e-commerce website. So if WordPress for your regular website or your blog, you have Shopify for an e-commerce website. And actually, if you use Shopify, you don't even need WordPress. So there are two really good things. Another thing that will make it pretty easy to build your website is something called Wix. That would be kind of more for the folks who don't have a website yet. Makes it easy to build one. It's not going to be completely mobile optimized, but it's probably going to be better than just paying someone a bunch of money who might not mobile optimize it, maybe charge more for it. I'm really a huge fan of using platforms that are in place to make the website. Wix.
You heard about Squarespace?
Yes, I do like Squarespace. I'm glad you said that. I'm very glad you said that. Kind of standing up here, I have to come at a speed pace, a bullet pace, trying to remember all these awesome platforms I've used. Squarespace is a wonderful platform. You're absolutely right. And Squarespace, just like Shopify, has really, really, really great support, and they make it really, really easy to design your site. So I'll get my royalty checks from them later. Payment for all this. Good.
Do you have any suggestions for help making your website accessible?
Help making the website accessible. So I think when you use a platform like Squarespace or Shopify, it's pretty much done for you, and that's what I love about them. They make it really, really easy. 10 years ago, to build an e-commerce website, you just wanted to bang your head against the wall. I still want to bang my head against the wall because we have a much, much, much larger site. But it's come so far. It's incredible how easy it is to just put up a website. There's so many really, really awesome guides and free tools on the website kind of like style guides. One of my favorite would actually be Life Hacker. They have so many different tips, and not just for websites, but also really everything. Everything from food to websites to social media. So Twitter. How many of you have heard someone say that never be on Twitter? That's just really, really dumb. Okay, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So, Twitter is arguably the second, third largest social network in the world now. And it's not just about, what I ate for lunch, what I ate for dinner. Although I do like to post that stuff because I like to see what other people are eating too. So why wouldn't I post it? Big fan of really cute cat pictures. The internet loves cute cat pictures, even cute dog pictures too. But one of the other things, once I get past the fact that this person might have hated Twitter and now they love it, or they were just scared to be on Twitter, is that they hate to hear people say and ask them to share their content. So how many of you just find yourself in the room and just someone does something without you asking? Not very often, especially not if you have teenagers. So it's okay to ask for people to share your content. You don't want to be really pushy about it, but it's certainly okay to ask for people to share your content. And perhaps, start with your friends and family. And maybe what you could do when you do this is when I want to ask someone to share content personally, I obviously want to appeal to them. I want to make it personal. I want to actually give a damn, once again, about them. So make it into a conversation and say, hey, maybe, John, can you share this blog post that I wrote? And then, when he asks to share a blog post, you share his. It's a sharing economy. It's not just you or them. It's everyone. So find those people who relate with your interests. And even when it comes to other businesses that might be similar to yours, shouldn't just beat them off with a stick. Be friendly with them. You're going to get nothing from them if you're just really, really angry with them all the time. And then maybe something comes up where there's a little dispute between you guys. But if you guys already had a prior relationship, it's going to go a lot better. So when it comes to Twitter, it's okay to ask just in an easy form, please retweet or retweet. I've heard a lot of people say that they hate that, or a lot of people say that they like that. At the end of the day, it converts. 28% of the tweets that are sent out that are retweets, which is someone sharing a tweet, say please retweet. Tweets that say please retweet get much, much higher engagement. Twitter is 140 characters, so it's all about short sentences, quick thoughts. Status updates that are less than 120 characters get shared more than the longer ones. Anyone have a guess why?
Because you can modify the tweet by adding more hashtags or adding your own post to the end of it.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. If your tweet is shorter, someone can add their comment to it. They can say, hey, this is awesome. Hey, this sucks. Down PCPGH. So Facebook. 75% of the engagement happens in the first 5 hours. 62% of Facebook users are active on a monthly basis, higher than any other platform. I always go with Facebook and Twitter first because they're my two favorite, but they might not be right for you. And it's really just about finding where your customers are, like I said. Images perform better on Facebook. It's also great with images on Twitter, but it's so hard in that short little spot. But images with a link perform better than just a piece of text on Twitter. On Facebook, you're asking about your company page. Post on other people's pages to your company page. So in your company page, you can't post on friends' profiles, but you can post on other companies' pages. So maybe you have an article that you wrote or an article that you share that's relevant to them. Why not share it with them? They might like it. If they don't, then I can just delete it. The biggest engagement on Twitter and Facebook is asking a question. And not just questions like, how was your day? More specific questions on like, What are you guys up to this morning? I'm going to Podcamp. Will I see you there? A little more complex questions. Things that are not just a yes or no answer. Things that you're actually going to figure out something. Even though Facebook allows you to have a lot more characters, statuses and pictures and all that stuff that you update, when they're short and sweet, they get better engagement. To be honest, most of us don't want to read an entire paragraph as we're scrolling through our Facebook feed. We see a cool picture and we like it, or we see this little bit of text and we click on the link. We don't want to sit there and read this whole long thing. If we want to read the whole thing, then we might go to the link that they gave us. One of the most recent things that has been performing really well on Twitter and Facebook is if you're sharing an article or a picture or something like that, take a quote that goes with it. People love quotes. I love quotes. So, one of the social networks that is one of the most confusing to me is actually LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a really, really great social network. There's a lot of professionals on there, but I mean, how do you use that? So, in my mind, LinkedIn is much better with you as a small business owner connecting with other small business owners. LinkedIn does have company pages, and I really, honestly, tell you, I haven't figured out a way to effectively use them unless you want to produce content on them all the time and write about your business. And that's not reasonable because, you have a limited amount of time. So connect with other entrepreneurs. Connect with your suppliers on there. Connect with people that you want to be your suppliers. Remind them you exist. Just connected yesterday on LinkedIn with someone who is the reporter for the New York Times. I saw that they had put out something on Twitter, and they were asking for information about an article that they were writing, completely relevant to our company. So I wrote them a note, and then followed up the next day about connecting with them on LinkedIn with another note, so they know I exist. Another great tool to get your company press or to see, maybe what articles are being written and then gain press. It's called Haro. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's called Help a Reporter Out, Haro. And it creates a crap ton of emails for you because it sends you 3 emails daily. And I just scan through the things in there. It sends you an email, and it's reporters that are looking for information for a story. The reporters are actually asking you for information. And then there's an email address you can reply to. It's a really, really awesome tool to not only connect with reporters, because that's another way I've found some folks, but also get press for your company. And it's just a quick scroll through. There's usually 30 or 40 different inquiries on each email. They're sorted by categories, so they're relevant to your business, and you can just look at your category, and then there's a spot right there to click, and it's super easy. You can throw them the image about your company in a short little thing. If they're interested, they contact you back. If not, it only took you a couple minutes. In article companies like the New York Times, they use Help a Reporter Out, so you could actually end up on the New York Times. Google Plus. How many of you are on Google Plus? How many of you actually know what Google Plus is and understand it? Aha, that's what I thought. Yeah, exactly. So Google, one of the most powerful companies, not in just the tech world, but the world, owns Google Plus. They kind of forced us into it, which is awesome for them. But it's a really powerful social network. It's a very technical community, very active in there. It's geared for big, beautiful pictures. Google Hangouts, which we're using actually right now to stream this through the camera back there, is a great tool for meetings, whether they're near or far. It's also a great tool to outreach to your customers. Maybe have a special members-only hangout with your customers. Google Docs, another Google service, great way to collaborate with folks. There's Google Forms on there. You can easily collect information. So, I'm going to skip through quickly these last few so I can get to the tools here that I have. Pinterest. Most of the users are female, 69%. 80% of the total pins are people sharing content. 80% of the people of all the pins are just sharing content. So there's 20% creating content, and then 80% sharing it. A lot of people share stuff on Pinterest. Food is the top category. If you're a restaurant, definitely be on Pinterest. Share your dishes. Maybe share a special recipe. Perhaps a special of the day that is only one time a year, and then they can make it at home, and then it's really good at your restaurant, so they'll come back. Instagram, all about photos, a little bit about video even. Instagram is amazing to just share a little behind the scenes of what's going on. I love it to kind of share throughout the day because it makes it really easy to share a picture to Twitter, to Facebook even. It makes it easy to share a lot of places. And this is one of the few times where I won't tell you that it's terrible to not create the content specifically for that network. The reason I was telling you these statistics about all these networks is you should try and mix it up. Create different content for different networks. And that doesn't mean that you have to create 20 bits of content a day. That means that today you share this on Twitter, tomorrow you share it on Facebook. The next day you might share it on Twitter again with a different headline. You don't have to have a different thing every day. You find something people really love, share it again, rewrap it in a different way. Say it a different way. It's definitely okay to reshare because most of the people who are looking at this stuff are going to see it within the first 3 couple hours of you posting it. After then, it's pretty much dead. So it's definitely okay to share. Share throughout the day, pick different times, play with different headlines, see which ones perform better. One of the tips people said is maybe take an article title versus a headline of an article and share them an hour apart from each other. Kind of see how the different interaction it gets. Vine, short 6-second videos. Kind of have to be really, really creative, but there's a lot of Vine stars.
Are there any analytical tools on Twitter that you can see how many people have looked at what you've posted?
Yes, so one of the tools that I love is called Buffer, which I was just about to get to. So Buffer is a tool that allows you to queue your updates for social networks. I constantly use Buffer to be able to queue my updates throughout the week. And that way, I'm not constantly sitting there sending out this update. The other thing that I love about Buffer is that you don't actually have to choose the time. It chooses the time for you. You can change the times if you want. It works on Twitter, works on Facebook, works on LinkedIn. So there's Buffer for you. And I have all of our accounts here. You can see I have 12 updates queued up here. 7 reasons October is the best month. And Buffer is also great because it integrates with so many different things. There's buttons that you can easily share. There's an iPhone app. There's article readers. So you can see that I have our Twitter account, LinkedIn, Google+. I mean, everything's connected to there. There's a ton more on there too. But
What's the advantage you think over Hootsuite?
I think Hootsuite is too complicated for
Okay.
most people. And I hate Hootsuite just because it does too much, and I don't want it to do that much. Obviously you can use it for less, but I really like to keep it simple, and that's why I really like Buffer. Hootsuite is still a great app if you really, really want to dive into analytics, but
What's the price comparison between Hootsuite and Buffer? Is Buffer
So,
a free site or
yeah.
is it user?
So both Hootsuite and Buffer have free versions. Buffer only has one plan. Like I said, keep it simple. Don't have 13 versions of Windows. $10 a month for Buffer. Hootsuite can range starting at, I believe it's 8 now or 10, up to thousands. Hootsuite is still a great tool, but I just think Buffer is a lot more simple. Keeps you focused. It integrates with so many different things. Hootsuite, you have to go to the app. And some other great apps here that I love. Find, Unfollow. It's an iPhone app that I use. Unfortunately, I did not check to see if it has an Android version. But it's a great app that I use to be able to look who's followed on Twitter, who's not following, it tells you everything about your following history. It shows you when you're added to list. It shows you people who are inactive. And while I don't want to tell you to make an automated message when people follow you, feel free to welcome them. Say, hey, how's it going, Will? Thanks for following us. If you see something relevant that they maybe just shared and you like, put it in your buffer queue to share later. I do want to talk about mention here. So mention, like I talked about before, you can use it to track sources all around the web. Anyone heard of Google Alerts? Okay, so Google Alerts is a great one. It's free. Mention is free for up to 3 sources, $20 a month otherwise. And if you look at our mention here, I am monitoring all kinds of different phrases that are relevant to the company. So I'm monitoring our brand name, one of our products, another brand name, another product, our website. So anytime anyone mentions it around the web, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, see it. I also have to use it to monitor our competitors too. What are our competitors doing? And mention is great because you can look at it, and it looks like we have a new mention here. And someone asked about Climb-On products earlier today on Twitter, so right after we're done with this session, you'll guarantee you I will be replying to that. You can see, posted on websites. It allows you to reply right from there if you want. You can hook up social accounts to it. It can get a lot more complicated than you want it to be, but it's also a really great tool. So I talked a lot about sharing content and creating content. Obviously, we can't create content all day long. Find people in your community who want to just share their content. Maybe they like to blog. So, hey, could you write a guest blog for us? Whatever topic you want about. Maybe you have something in mind. Got a lot of great content recently on our website, just from our community. Whether it's images, blog, just in general. And people love to have their stuff featured and shared. So why not feature it? It's free. They already like the company. They already like the product. Why not involve them? So obviously, you probably don't have a million customers, and they're all probably not bloggers, so they're not going to create content for you every single day of the week. There's an application called Zite, Z-I-T-E. It's a article reader, and allows you to easily curate content relevant to a topic you choose. So I have a different Zite for climbing. I have a Zite for CrossFix. And that's how, maybe he doesn't like CrossFix. So Zite makes it really easy to find content related to your community, and then you can share it. Another great website, Reddit. Reddit has these things called subreddits that are related to specific topics. The Reddit community is amazing. They're really, really active, so perhaps you personally can get active there. Reddit community also really doesn't like big brands or companies talking there, so tread carefully there. Be yourself, be an actual person, don't be your company, don't try and over-promote your company there. But you can definitely find a lot of good information there if you'd like to get involved and spend a little bit more time there. But you can also just find interesting articles there. Stumble upon. Another tool to find articles with. Things to share.
Good way to waste about 5 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, you
Just
could
one thing.
Hey,
Hey, are those 5 billable hours?
Yeah. Yes. Other tools. I talked about mention. Find, unfollow, iPhone app. If this, then that. It's a tool that just, it's hard to explain what it does. If this happens, then that happens. That's what it does. And you can use it to automatically send a photo to Instagram. You can use it to automatically push something to Twitter. Be careful about doing that too much, but I use it a lot for actually saving photos. We post a lot of photos, and sometimes, I forget to save them. And then we go back, and my aunt's like, hey, do you have that photo? And I'm like, I posted it on Instagram, and it's not really easy to get off there. So instead, with if this, then that, it automatically takes every photo I post everywhere and just drops it in my Dropbox. And then I have it. Dropbox, another great tool, easy to sort things. So you're going to read a lot of articles. Maybe it's just in bed at night looking at Zeit and seeing what's going on. Pocket is a great app to save them for later. I used Pocket to pin a couple articles in the last several weeks about social media that I perhaps wanted to use for statistics or talking about. Evernote, an amazing, amazing app to sort everything in my notes right here. Evernote. So they're synced on whether it's my computer, my phone. So I had all the ways that I just, backup plan after backup plan, basically, if everything failed. I always had my notes. Even had a paper copy. Evernote can also help you easily sort pictures. When someone's creating a blog post for us and I get like a photo from them and I get their byline about them in the article, I put it all in there so it's all together. That way I don't have all these emails I have to jumble through. So, I'll leave you with the last few things here. What not to do. Automated feeds are pretty boring. When you have an automated feed and there's no one behind them, and it's just the constant automated feed going out, no one probably cares. So if you think about setting up an automated feed on a network, probably just don't do it and don't be there. Don't leave your networks unattended. That doesn't mean you have to stay up 24/7 to attend a network. I might have done that a couple times, but don't just ignore something. If someone posts on your Facebook and they're looking for you, and you don't reply within a day or so, you're probably going to get a little aggravated. They might not contact you again. They tried to get in contact with you, but they made that effort. So whether you need to set up email notifications to handle that, or someone else just checks it for you occasionally. Set up a system to make sure it's checked.
Have you ever heard of follow-up.cc?
No.
You sign up, and when you email somebody, you can also CC or BCC like anything before follow-up, before the act, like 12:30 next Thursday, whatever.
Oh, okay. So it allows you to
automatically email you and say, "Hey, you wanted to follow up with this."
Yes. Yeah, that's cool. I was about to just not talk about it because I skipped it. Mailbox is a good app that I use to kind of control my email inbox. It allows you to boomerang things back to you. But I'll have to check that one out. So the last thing, you set up a profile on a network, set it up. Don't leave it unfilled. Don't fill up spots. This is a place to show your business. This is a place to show you. Why would you leave stuff empty? The hardest thing is when you change something, you need to change it everywhere. So when you set up your networks, make sure you have your plan. Like, what do you want your headline to be often? What avatar do you want to use? What cover photo do you want to use? And keep them as consistent as you can. Sources here to kind of check some things out. Socialmediaexaminer.com. Mashable.com has a category for social media. Entrepreneur.com has a category for social media. And then finally, HubSpot has great marketing and analytics. And then the Buffer blog, the tool that I talked about, they have a great blog just with all kinds of analytics and information, more than you can ever know. And that's how they actually built their company. Images to share, Flickr Creative Commons, Wikipedia public domain images, and your fans. Any final questions from anyone?
I have a question. When you were talking about blogs before, and you were talking about like your frustration with the low click-through rate when you send out.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
So when it comes to a low click-through rate, that's just the reality. You need to go where your fans are. Obviously we still use email marketing. We send out our one email a message, but we don't spend a ton of time on it. It's a tool that we created before, and now it's on its downturn. Email's still a great source. You can still build a great list, but you just have to create the content that people want, if that's what you're looking for.
What are your thoughts on like two of the types of social media seem to be
Yeah.
how Instagram will not open natively in Twitter.
Right. I very publicly said on my Twitter account a couple weeks ago, not weeks ago, it had to be months ago at this point, that when Twitter started closing down their API and saying you couldn't automatically follow people or you couldn't use these certain tools, basically Twitter, what they did is they shut off access to a lot of third-party applications. And I'm not a fan of that at all. I want to see a controlled community, but an open community. And Twitter really built themselves by those third-party apps. That's how Twitter got a lot of the features it has. So definitely not a fan of that.
So I have two questions. First of all, what are you going to reply to that person who you said you're going to reply to?
I got the same thing today. Have you heard about Farm on Product? So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, see what the actual conversation was.
Yeah.
I'll probably just reply, hey, James, thanks for mentioning us.
Yeah.
Let us know if you have any questions.
Sounds good. Yeah.
If I can look at his profile and see that there's something that he actually wants to know about, then I'll ask about that. But, I want him to know that I'm there, but not be pushy at the same time.
Okay, cool, thanks. And the second thing is, I find so much of the content on Mashable, which they should know better because it's Mashable, but is like listicles and people saying things that are super obvious. So it's like blog often, create high quality content.
Yeah.
And you're like that's. So is there anybody specific on Mashable that you follow who you find it's actually helpful and you learn something?
No, not in general. No.
Okay,
No.
thanks.
You're right about that, about
Yeah.
Mashable. It's still a good source because those things that are obvious to you might not be obvious to everyone.
Certainly.
Earlier, there was a comment about finding local clients and stuff like that. I find Facebook ads to be excellent for that because you can actually pinpoint it down to zip code. Like I was using for a volunteer effort for my college alumni, and we were having an event, so I was able to find within 10 miles of 15237. And you can really even pinpoint it down to a specific interest or keyword or something like that. So I put in my college, Pittsburgh, 10 miles of zip code, and it told me how many people were there.
Yeah, Facebook does have some really good targeting options, and that's what's really funny about.
And it's very inexpensive.
Right, and you can play with it a lot really easy with a short amount of money. I think it definitely takes a lot more of a time investment, and then obviously money investment too. I will be outside this session for a few minutes if anyone has any more questions once I clean up here. So.
I'll let you get out.